Konnichiwa, friendos. This is your captain speaking. Thank you for boarding Air Penrod today. What's up, guys? Sorry for that weird intro. I was just being silly. It's your boy Josh, and today we're going to talk about Shin Ultraman. Shin Ultraman. Now, I'm well aware that there was a recent update that the movie got delayed indefinitely, so you don't have to tell me. But anyway, yeah, the movie's been delayed indefinitely. It's not coming out this summer as we originally thought, but I'm still going to cover the trailer today. Before we do that, let me just briefly explain what Ultraman is. I have the title screen back here, and it's the title from the original show. For those of you who don't know who Ultraman is, let me just give you a brief little rundown. Ultraman he's a superhero from the planet Nebula M78, otherwise known as the Land of Light. Basically, he's a silver and red super powered being who comes down to Earth and inhabits, or not inhabits, but basically it's the idea of having a human host, and he chooses in particular a man by the name of Shin Hayata, who's part of the Science Patrol, which is a small ragtag group of different characters, all with different quirky traits, and they all go out and they hunt monsters and aliens. And usually, the episodes in the original series from the 60s would kind of play out as, oh, there's a plot, the Science Patrol comes in, tries to help out, and then the monster appears. They try to stop the monster, but in the last 5 minutes, Hayata would use the beta capsule, which was given to him by Ultraman, so that he could turn into Ultraman, and then hence end the episode by fighting the monster, defeating it, and then having a little cap off. And this formula was so popular that it ended up getting multiple different sequel series. Even in and of itself, Ultraman was a sequel series to Ultra Q, which came out a couple months prior to it. It aired in like January of 1966, and then just a couple months later, after Ultra Q ended, they immediately started the sequel series Ultraman, which then got its own sequel series throughout the rest of time, from Ultra 7 to Ultraman Jack, Ultraman Ace, Ultraman Taro, Ultraman Leo, Ultraman Jonius, Ultraman 80, Ultraman Zerth, Ultraman Tiga, Ultraman Gaia, Ultraman Dyna, the whole 9 yards, and it has been a continuous franchise since then. And with the only real standout being Ultra Q, because that was in black and white, being the first show. No superheroes. It was just a small group of reporters, you know, covering things like mysterious events, aliens, and of course, giant monsters. It was very much like the Twilight Zone meets Godzilla, pretty much. And then as soon as they came up with Ultraman that same year, 55 years ago, these shows came out, Ultra Q and Ultraman. So as soon as they came up with Ultraman, they thought, let's make something more kid friendly. Let's make something action packed. Of course, the production company run by Eiji Tsuburaya, who was the special effects director for many of the Godzilla movies at the time, came in and said, I'm gonna make my own production company. I'm gonna split off from whatever Toho's doing, and I'm gonna make my own production company, Tsuburaya Productions. Henceforth, ushering in an entire tokusatsu boom throughout the 70s and parts of the 80s, with different superheroes like Mirror Man, Fireman, Jumborg Ace, even influencing Jet Jaguar from one of the Godzilla movies, Spectre Man, and of course the most famous ones being Kamen Rider, who got his own franchise, and of course Super Sentai, which was the show that basically was responsible for launching the ever popular Power Rangers franchise. So Ultraman has definitely had its influences, plus things that have influenced it, plus its own successors, pretty much. There's no shortage of it. I think of Ultraman as being the missing link between Godzilla and Power Rangers. And most of the shows kind of all follow the same formula of a group of different people who all work for a different, a certain kind of like a shield or a sword, kind of a different organization, and they go out and they fight these aliens and these giant monsters, only to realize, oh yeah, one of the guys in our group happens to have been provided the consciousness of a superhero from a very particular planet. So yeah, it's basically the whole gist of it. Not to mention the fact that it follows the whole secret identity trope of, oh, I have to keep my, I can't tell anyone I'm Ultraman because it'll ruin everything. Even though most of the time everyone in the end kind of figures it out. At the end of each little series, everyone ends up figuring out who's Ultraman anyway. So yeah, eventually I'll talk more about it in the future. But now that you have the gist, let's get to this little trailer for a movie that won't come out for probably a while due to insert name of disease that has become a pandemic. But anyway, let's get it rolling. So this is really short. It's only 36 seconds long. We're just going to breeze through it right now. From Nebula M78. My dude. All right. So we're just going to quickly run through this. It's going to be really short. There's not a whole lot to dig through because this movie is from the same creators as Shin Godzilla. It's directed by, I can't remember. It's directed by the guy who I believe did the special effects. He also did the special effects for Gamera Heisei trilogy. And of course, this team also worked on Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is a show that I have not watched. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I never had the time or the interest of getting into it, but I acknowledge that it exists, and it's kind of cool. I just am not very familiar with it. Either way, same creators as Shin Godzilla, and it kind of feels like that. Let's look through this. So we got, the military is working over here. Scientists, most likely scientists, are working over here. And then we have your Science Patrol guys. Hold on. We'll keep going forward. Some of these shots are very reminiscent of Shin Godzilla, very much so. Just the way that they're shot from weird angles. Like, there's a couple more coming up here. I can't really, there's not a whole lot to talk about since I'm not really familiar with some of the characters that they may present here may not be the same as from the original show. So I'm not sure what's going to happen going into this. There's going to be a lot of military involvement in this movie, though. You can tell just by all of the tanks and all of the military uniforms that there's going to be a lot of military exposure in this film. Hopefully, it doesn't detract from the whole Science Patrol portion because, Science Patrol, I always dug the Science Patrol more just because they know exactly what they're doing, even if it doesn't work. Meanwhile, the military kind of just does whatever it wants. They're just like, oh, we'll just kind of shoot some stuff at it. Meanwhile, Science Patrol is actively working on different gadgets and sorting out different plans of attack, studying each of the monsters and each of the alien characters. So the Science Patrol definitely seems like they have more experience. It seems like they have more experience. I'm not knacking on the military, though. Thank you for your service. Well, even the police gets involved. Jeez. And of course, you have all these, there's a lot of human characters in this. You got the police, the military, the news reporters, and then you got the Science Patrol. So like that's a huge collage of different characters of different, job backgrounds. It seems like it's going to be very, very heavily focused on them in this movie, which worked for Shin Godzilla, I just don't know if it's gonna work for Shin Ultraman. But I digress. Let's keep going. And then, of course, you have more shots like this. See, look, this is more of those Shin Godzilla-esque shots. It's very stylized, and even the cinematography feels very, refined, very new, And of course, now they have more time to work on it since they delayed it. So, I mean, they could just, they could add more scenes like this, or they could add more scenes of monster action with Ultraman fighting the monsters. So, I mean, who knows? Who knows what we're going to get, and who knows when it's actually going to come out. But anyway. Oh, oh, oh. Hold on. I love this shot. It's a nice little, Science Patrol badge. Just like in that show. But of course, it's just like the show. I mean, like, I don't think these particular filmmakers are dumb enough to be like, stray too far. I know people complained about Shin Godzilla for how it's not Godzilla. At least he had more powers than the 98 Godzilla did, but, I think here they have a little bit, since Ultraman was constantly pulling powers out of his ass anyway, it's like you have a lot of room to, be creative and have a lot of, that creative licensing to work off of. You have more freedom. With Godzilla, it's like, it's kind of strict, it's kind of stoic. It's stick to that formula, and if anyone, goes away from that formula, and it's like people get mad. I think with Ultraman, they might do it better in terms of the, actual presentation of Ultraman and the monsters. Because you have more to work with since Ultraman's already pretty freeform to begin with. As long as they keep the Specium Ray. Give me some Specium Ray. I know he probably should only use it like once. It's his finishing move, but as long as he has it in there, because it's not Ultraman without the Specium Ray. You can have him look like Ultraman all you want. Without that Specium Ray, it's not Ultraman. Or at least to me it is. But I think they understand that. So, yeah. I have faith that they'll at least keep that, keep some of the iconic powers and some of the, the iconic characteristics there. Okay, more people talking. Why do these look like, oh god, it's bringing me back to tech theater when I was in high school. Because I took when I was a freshman in high school, I took tech theater, and we would have the flies come down, and we would, we put different lighting instruments on it depending on what, you're doing design wise. However, obviously, that's just what this reminds me of. That's not what this actually is. I'm just getting flashbacks to freshman year of high school. Anyway, a lot more interesting shots of these characters. It feels like they're really going in the drama direction with this one. Almost like a crime drama. It's weird. Shin Godzilla was more of like a Japanese neo-political drama. This one feels more like a crime drama almost. That's what it feels like. I don't know. These different shots are really interesting for something that's supposed to be about an alien superhero who's fighting monsters that are, destroying things. But, Oh, yes. This is where we get the shot of Niranga from episode 3 of Ultraman. He was an invisible monster. Every time he consumed electricity, he would start to, become more visible. And it was interesting because he's an electrical monster. He has electricity surging throughout his body, and he uses the little antenna on his head. They move forward, and then from his horn and his antenna, he can shoot bolts of electricity from it. He's one of my favorite monsters from the show. Easily one of my favorites. There he is. There's those big antenna, and then there's the horn. The fun fact, his design was based off of Baragon from the Godzilla films, particularly Frankenstein Conquers the World and Destroy All Monsters, which he was only in for like not even 30 seconds. Just like Baron. So sad. But anyway, they took the Baragon suit from the Godzilla franchise, modified it, and turned it into this. Turned it into Niranga for the show. They did the same thing in Ultra Q with Pagos, and they also did it in a later episode of Ultraman for another monster, which you'll see in just a few seconds. This guy. This guy's name is Gabora. Same concept. They took that same suit from Niranga that they used for Pagos, that they used for Baragon, and they just modified it again for episode 9 of Ultraman, where you have this guy, Gabora, who kind of looks like a Venus flytrap at first, but he opens up his frill thing to expose his face. Here he looks really weird. But Gabora is supposed to be, a monster who feeds on uranium. And that was the whole focus of that particular episode that he was in, was that there was a uranium canister that was, found in an area that was surging with, uranium 235. He was in that vicinity and he was feeding off of it, and that's what makes him more powerful. And of course, Ultraman had to come in and stop him, and yada, yada, yada. Something that's really odd about these particular renders of the monsters is just it's a little bit of the texture. I feel like texturing was a little bit weird because they tried to design them in a way where it was like they look fluent when they move, but it doesn't quite look finished. Like they're interesting designs, but like they're not necessarily as appealing as they were on the original show. Here they look kind of awkward. It's weird. And I think Shin Godzilla did it so much better. I think Shin Godzilla was great in a sense that even though the parts where you could tell it was CGI, it was definitely crap. The parts where you couldn't tell, where Godzilla was barely moving, those shots, they're amazing. It's some of the best CGI that you could ever ask for in those particular moments. You look at those shots and you're like, oh my god, it doesn't look like CGI. I could actually see a person fitting in that, of course, minus the arms. Here, here in this case, it kind of feels like it's leaning more towards the other CGI. The more noticeable CGI, the one that you can tell is CGI. Anyway, moving on. Up. There's Hayata. Going back. There we go. I don't know why he's wearing white. It's interesting, but there you go. I believe that's the beta capsule he's holding because, as we've established, in the first episode of Ultraman, he comes down as Hayata's fighting Bemular. And Ultraman comes in the orange ball. It takes Hayata, and then Ultraman in that bubble bestows himself within Hayata. And in order for Hayata to become Ultraman, Ultraman gave him the beta capsule. So I believe that's what we're looking at. This shot kind of reminds me of, episode 10, where he's in the forest and he fights Jiris, which is the Godzilla suit, but, green and with a giant frill, like a frilled lizard. Again, easily one of my favorite Ultraman monsters for that reason. Anyway. There we go. There's the big man. The big man in red and silver. It looks kind of cool. I mean, the panning up shot is rather interesting. It's one of those modern film techniques that you can't really explain, but you know that you can only find it in modern films. If you see the power line, you go through, go around, and then you see his face. Surprisingly, it looks exactly like he did in the original show. I mean, the lankiness kind of makes him look like Ultraman Jack, but other than that, he looks like Ultraman. Exactly. But my only question is, and it's just something I always question since they revealed that they were making this movie, you won't be able to notice it, but where's the color timer? There's no color timer on his chest, and I was like, why? That was such an integral part of his character, was that as soon as he started losing energy, the blue color timer on his chest would start beeping red, which would signify that he only has 3 minutes before he turns back into his, human host. And it's just like here he doesn't have it. And I'm like, why not? It would make sense if there's a fight scene and it goes off in one scene and then he, turns back and then maybe in a second fight scene he would, go back to doing it again. And in context of the movie, it would be like a couple days later. Like that makes sense to me, but the fact that like I don't know, it just means that there's less conflict and I'm not necessarily a fan. But really that's my only gripe with the suit is that there's no color timer on it. Just cuz, color timer is another one of those things that's key to Ultraman. So I mean, let's just hope that they have the Specium Ray. I'm counting on it. They'll definitely probably have the Specium Ray. It's just that's the color timer is the one point where they kind of faltered just a little bit in my opinion. And there we go. That's Shin Ultraman. Yeah, don't necessarily know when it's gonna come out, but rest assured, it'll be soon, hopefully. As soon as, the disease that shall not be named blows over and hopefully we can get, more people vaccinated and stuff. We can get more people, we could slowly start coming back to some kind of normalcy. Hopefully they'll be able to release it during a time when, there's more faith that people can actually get together. But, until then, we'll keep waiting. And this is what we have to go off of. And it looks okay. I'm definitely excited for it. I've been an Ultraman fan for most of my life. That was a wee little lad. Little lad. But of course, it does look kind of weird. The human character aspect definitely reminds me of Shin Godzilla, which is okay, I guess. And yeah, the monster characters, Ultraman included, do kind of look a little bizarre, but they're designed all right. I mean, they've got decent updates. It's just the rendering. It's just a little bit of the rendering that was a little off. But anyway, that was my spiel on Shin Ultraman. If you guys want to subscribe, like, dislike, do whatever you want. Don't really care. What am I going to do next time? Ah, yes. I still have to upload my Mortal Kombat reaction. That'll be with my brother Tyler. Yeah. And what else? Oh, yes. Since Godzilla vs. Kong is coming out in less than a week, my very special plan for it, since I have no time to do or upload any reviews of the Kong or Godzilla films, I'm going to do a tier list. I'm going to do a combined tier list between the King Kong franchise and the Godzilla franchise. Chronological order, I'm going to be ranking them. That video is going to be very long. Brace yourself. Huh. But anyway, there's a lot coming up. And of course, I'll be reviewing Godzilla vs. Kong most likely a couple days after it comes out. But, that's what we got coming up. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is Mr. Joshua Penrod signing out.